This is James Adams with My Home Electrician, where we believe that success is a symptom of good relationships. The cheesiness is on. It's the only way we're going to stay positive in this heat. You work with what you got. All right, come with me, Robert. Robert's manning the camera. Y'all remember Robert? He's back there working magic. This is pretty ugly, both pretty and ugly, or ugly pretty, however you want to call it. This was actually necessary. So, what triggered this? Let's start there. So what triggered this house is being sold. Home inspector came in and said, hey, you don't have an outside disconnect. Technically speaking, the house is grandfathered in. However, when we started looking through all these details that were in this house, we realized that somebody had done a whole bunch of unpermitted work. They had moved the meter base, snipped the meter, basically double lugged the meter base, and attempted to run wires in parallel. Basically, they thought that if you could take two tiny wires and smush them together underneath something that was meant for one wire, those two wires put together that are already too small will equal the bigger wire. There are sections in the code book that allow for that, in actually realistically running wires in parallel and taps and things like that. You'd see that in a lot of commercial, industrial, or really long runs in residential. Not to bore you with that, somebody basically did a whole bunch of mess. They moved the water heater to make room for an extra bathroom. When they did that, they cut the primary grounding and bonding, basically the primary safety for the entire house, electrically speaking, that prevents fires and causes breakers to trip instead of just blowing up equipment, blowing you up, lighting your house on fire, all these really huge dramatic things that are actually very real. And they decided in their infinite wisdom they'd chop it. So what we ended up needing to do is get rid of how they fed the meter originally, run it correctly. The house is being sold, so literally the house is bought and paid for, and it changes hands in about 9 days. So we're in a rush. When I told the homeowner, hey, look, we can run this through the house, and we can run it through the drywall and the attic and all this other stuff. You won't see anything except for this nice little disconnect box, and that's it. No outside pipe. She opted out of that, which she's allowed to do. The only other code compliant way that made sense without demoing her walls and all this other mess would be to run the circuiting, or not really circuiting, but the service on the outside of the house. So here's what we had to do to get this up to date. See right here, these beautiful little shiny copper wires. They're pretty for now. Soon they will be tarnished and foul and ugly like every house in 2 years' time. So we have a number 4 for our primary ground that is going to act as a bond, which is different. Maybe in another video we'll discuss the difference between grounding and bonding. This is our cold water bond that's going to the inlet side before the disconnect of the cold water line to the water heater, and it's clamped on there with an underground rated overkill bonding clamp. Ran continuously along here, ran through this, which is what called an intersystem ground bus, which is basically for anybody, you can see over here, old telephone stuff, internet stuff. This is what they're supposed to be using, and not putting clamps onto the meter base and doing a whole bunch of other weird, sketchy stuff that actually doesn't protect their equipment. So we've got that. Then we ran a number 6, which is what's required for your supplementary or secondary. All to say it's a backup. So let's say somebody decides to disconnect that water heater again during a replacement, and they opt to not put that clamp back on, or it's in the way, so they get rid of it. We have a backup required by code. Those are 2 8-foot long ground rods that are driven a minimum of 6 feet apart, which is required by code. After that, everything terminates into this disconnect box. Because it has this fancy switch in here for overcurrent protection, that means that this is kind of considered your main panel, or your main form of disconnect. So we're kind of doing 2 birds, 1 stone. We're doing our outside disconnect, or fireman disconnect, as sometimes it gets nicknamed, which is required by current code. And now that, because this is our main, we're able to run this in here. What that means, though, is our inside panel is no longer a main. Inside panel is now a sub panel. So we had to rearrange some stuff. We had to fix a few things that were messed up anyway. More stuff done during a remodel that was smart at the time. And then we, even though I don't like it, and I hate seeing surface conduit, this was the less expensive route. Given the situation with the house, we got this guy ran all the way over. and we got everything punching back through the brick, and we resealed everything. So not a pretty job the way I'd prefer, having just as minimal surface level cosmetic stuff as possible, trying to get this all cleaned up and not having it here running through the house. But for a code compliant method, in the situation where you need to get all this stuff fixed and kind of reverse engineer and do right, at least the primary safety features of a house, this checks all the boxes. Got all of our labels on, all of our stickers, and tomorrow is the magic day, inspection day. So yeah, we'll get our green tag on inspection, coordinate with the utility, have them come back out and re-tag their meter, and we're all gravy and good to go. So long-winded video, I know, but there was a lot going on and I'm hot. So I'm gonna let you all go. Again, this is James Adams with My Home Electrician, where we believe that success is a symptom of good relationships. Hope you have an awesome day.